The locked exhibit. My class once went on a field trip to an old prison that had been turned into a museum. The guide showed us the cells, the cafeteria, even the old execution chamber. At one point, a couple of kids thought it would be funny to shove me inside a cell and slam the door shut. It locked instantly, and they all laughed as I yelled to let me out. The weird thing was, when the tour guide came over with the keys, he froze. Then he asked the kids, "Which cell did you lock him in?" They pointed, and his face went pale. He told us that particular cell hadn't been opened in decades. The door was supposed to be permanently sealed. He pulled out his keys, but none of them worked. Eventually, after a lot of rattling and forcing, the door just swung open on its own. When I stepped out, the guide looked like he'd seen a ghost. He whispered, "Nobody should have been in there." That night, I dreamt of a man sitting on the bunk in that same cell, staring at me with dark, hollow eyes. And even years later, I still dream about him sometimes. The girl who didn't belong in 5th grade. Our class went on a zoo field trip. I remember we were all in matching t-shirts the teachers had made us wear so we wouldn't get lost. About halfway through the day, I noticed a girl walking with our group who I didn't recognize. She had the same t-shirt on but no backpack, and she never spoke. Whenever I tried to get a closer look, she drifted back into the crowd. Eventually, I asked my teacher who she was, and the teacher said, "Who?" Everyone's accounted for. But I wasn't imagining her. My friend whispered later that he'd seen her too. Pale skin, dark hair, always looking down at the ground. When we loaded back onto the bus at the end of the day, I counted everyone as they walked on. 30 students. Then the quiet girl stepped onto the bus. That made 31. I blinked, and just like that, she wasn't there anymore. I don't know if the teachers ever believed us, but to this day, I swear we brought someone back with us from the zoo. The vanishing cabin. When I was in 7th grade, our school took us on a field trip to a nature camp for a weekend. On the second day, a group of us wandered down a trail and found a cabin hidden behind the trees. It looked abandoned, windows boarded up, door half rotten, but we dared each other to go inside. Inside, there were dusty bunk beds, old lanterns, and a journal on the floor. The pages were filled with shaky handwriting, but none of us could read more than a few words. Before long, a counselor blew a whistle and yelled for us to head back. We didn't tell him about the cabin, afraid we'd get in trouble. That night at dinner, I mentioned it to one of the teachers. She gave me a strange look and said, "There aren't any cabins out there. That part of the woods is empty." The next morning, we tried to find it again. We walked the same trail, checked every clearing, but the cabin was gone. There wasn't even a foundation or footprint in the dirt. But when I emptied my backpack at home, I found something I didn't put there. One of the cabin's old lanterns, rusted and still smelling faintly of smoke. The extra chaperone. Back in high school, my class took a field trip to a history museum. We had the usual setup, 2 teachers, 1 parent volunteer, and about 30 kids. Not long into the tour, one of my friends leaned over and asked if I noticed the extra guy in our group. At first, I thought he was messing with me, but when I looked around, I saw him. A tall man in a dark jacket standing at the back of the group. I assumed he was another staff member or security guard, until I realized something unsettling. He wasn't speaking to anyone. He didn't carry a badge, and every time we moved to a new room, he followed, always hanging back just far enough to seem like he wasn't with us. At one point, I asked my teacher who he was. She gave me a confused look and said, "Who?" When I tried to point him out, he was gone. Later that night, someone uploaded group photos from the trip. In 2 of them, you can clearly see him, standing just barely in frame, watching. No one knew who he was. The museum staff said no one fit that description, but for the rest of the school year, whenever we went anywhere as a class, I kept checking the back of the group, just to make sure he wasn't there again. The bus that never turned around. This story happened when I was in middle school on a field trip to a science museum about an hour away. I sat in the back of the bus, headphones in, and eventually drifted off to sleep. When I woke up, everything was wrong. The bus was still moving, but every single seat around me was empty. I thought maybe we had arrived and I overslept, but outside the window wasn't a museum parking lot. It was an endless 2-lane highway surrounded by trees. No cars, no signs, no people. When I walked to the front, my stomach dropped. The driver's seat was empty. The wheel was turning on its own. I tried calling out, but my voice just echoed back at me. Then I noticed the scenery had changed. Now we were passing identical rows of white houses, repeating like a broken video game. I sat down, terrified, until I closed my eyes. The next thing I knew, my friend was shaking me awake as the bus pulled into the museum parking lot. Everyone insisted nothing strange happened, but I had deep pinch marks in my arm from when I tried to wake myself up. To this day, I don't know if I dreamed it, or if for a little while I was on a bus that didn't belong to our world.